So how many coincidences does it have to be before it's mathematically impossible? I say this because of the Bible. Yes, the Bible. I know some people move on if you don't believe in the biblical God. Because there was a lot of, fighting, especially in the Old Testament. A lot of burning of cities because God had his people do this. And for good reason. And this is where I'm getting to how this pertains to right now in regards to AI. Yeah. Because it's in the Bible. So, the Wall of Jericho, many people may have heard this. That's that history lesson. That's what the Bible is. It's a history book. And it's the same, it's a different group of people, but always making the same mistakes over and over again. So, I've said this before. Everybody thinks that God, the Old Testament God, is this horrible, mean God because he would have them burn down cities and he was harsh with punishment. Yes, because he was building a nation, a righteous people to have a nation so they could prosper. But they had to follow his rules, his laws. And yet God gave free will. So when you want to blame God for everything happening, it's like, no, first look at yourself and then look at everybody around you. Because really it's mankind that creates the look at how many people we have in the world that want to control others. Trafficking alone shows that. But you have leaders of countries that do this. The World Economic Forum, this constant need to control others. And now even Jordan Peterson, and these are people that are so ego-filled. And that I think the ego is what becomes the delusion many times. I mean, I think it's God that places it, and sometimes it's the wicked. But I also think it's the person themselves because they becoming conformed to this world. You're going to live in your ego. Ego. Think of easing God out. Ego. So the Wall of Jericho, basically, Joshua was the leader of the people. Took them into Jericho. They had to take the city down. Because God would have them do this, not because he's a mean God, but because the culture they had, God did not want it infecting the righteous people. Because those people had chosen not to follow God. It's as simple as that. You could say that's horrible of God, but he's the creator. He gets to decide, okay? He did not want, everybody on the earth has had a choice to either follow God or not, or to follow false worship. If this is the reason why everybody in the world knows about the Bible. They may not understand it, they may not accept it, they may not believe in it, but they make a choice in that. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you believe. It doesn't. You can do your I like this religion, I like this, it's fancy for me and all, but at the end of the day, when the very, judgment time comes, it's not going to matter what you believe. So it's best to make sure you know what's true and what's not. So in the Old Testament, the Wall of Jericho, God led Joshua and a group of people in to take Jericho out because it was filled with nothing but people that were the sons of destruction. Destroying others, destroying the land, destroying countries, World Economic Forum type people. Really. Many faces you could put on that. And the reason God did that is because otherwise those kinds of people, they infect others. That's the only word. That culture ends up seeping, and that showed throughout the Old Testament because the Israelites, when they wouldn't follow God, and they paid the price for it, when they wouldn't, they took on the cultures of sacrificing babies to Baal and Moloch. And then, and there's many other gods. There's so many gods that come and go, and people want to worship him. And, we built up this old idol or this new idol, and it's, we know this is real. Well, these people did this in the Bible too, and it was all false. That's why God made such a point about the idols. So after Israel, and after Jericho, they only defeated Jericho because of God. Because the people had to be in right connection with God. Like if they were sinning horribly bad and just a whole bunch of it, then God turns his back. God lifts that protection, the same thing that's happened to America. Because I very much believe that the pilgrims that came here, no, I don't just believe that's what I was taught, but there's a lot of people out there that want to say that's wrong history. No, I think it's a true history. It's Bible-based too, because it's all throughout the Old Testament that God takes a nation of people and he wants to raise them right so they have a prosperous nation. And it starts with a covenant, but that covenant goes both ways. God makes a promise and the people make a promise that they're going to follow God's laws. So when enough people stop following God's laws, well, then that protection starts being lifted because you're not holding up your end of the bargain. So they won Jericho and they tore it down, but all of the gold and silver and all of the gems that were left, God told all the people to put it in the treasury. Isn't that interesting? The treasury, yeah. Not take any of it, put it in the treasury and just move on by. God was going to provide for them, but some people took some of those devoted things. Yes, they did. And so God knew that. And so God was upset. So then the next nation they had to take down was Ai. It's Ai. It's A, small I. And so they had to take it down. In their first run at it, there was several people that died. So Joshua knew right away. He fell to his feet. You're not protecting us. What happened, God? And God said, because you have people in your midst, my children have taken devoted things. They're hiding them that they had taken from Jericho. So he said, you have to go out, get all that devoted things. And some people had gold. Some people had a piece of silver. So then after penance was made and people were sorry, then they went and they overtook the Ai country. And Ai was the central part of Canaan, Canaanites. The Canaanites are one of the worst group of people in the whole Bible because they ate babies. They sacrificed and ate the babies. Talk about bad. Yeah. Those people still run around today, unfortunately, believe it or not. So, Ai was a central area. Here, I'll tell you exactly what it is. What it says, because Ai is also called heap of ruins. Ai was a place in central Canaan. It is first mentioned in the Bible in Genesis 12:8 as a place where Abraham camped during his journey toward the land God promised in Genesis 12:1. Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. When Abraham reached Ai, he built an altar and called upon the name of the Lord. The name Ai means heap of ruins. Ai means heap of ruins. How interesting. Yes, again, it's spelled with a capital A and a little I. I think that God's really trying to tell us a message. So like I said at the beginning, how many coincidences do you need before you realize that God's trying to wake a whole bunch of people up and has woken a whole bunch of people up? And for those that don't want to wake up, well, history shows. I mean, God is very clear. God is not like... God is all loving, and Jesus showed that side because Jesus was God incarnate. But at the same time, his rules are rather simple. It's just somehow we continually break them. And if all of those people, and I'm sure they did, that would follow God or follow a leader that heard from God, said, well, we don't have any evidence or proof. God always eventually shows the proof. But here's the thing, people will still not believe it because Jesus showed tons of proof to the people that followed him, and they even questioned it. It wasn't until he resurrected himself from the dead and they touched him that they realized it's true, and they realized they never have to face death. Even if they face a death, they will come back when that judgment day comes and all are judged. So I would just encourage people to really think about the Jericho story and realize that what came after the story of Jericho, and it's not a story, the history lesson of Jericho, came the fall of Ai. And it, to this day, is not a time, it's got stones all on it.